You know that feeling when you walk into a library or a museum or even a brand new school and everything just feels right? We move through these public spaces every day and barely give them a second thought. But behind the scenes, there's this hidden world of logistics, design, and really specialized know-how. Today, we're going to pull back that curtain.
I mean, really think about it for a second. What on earth does a nursery for toddlers have in common with a super high security national bank or a cutting edge science lab with an elegant art gallery? They're totally different universes, right? Each one has its own playbook, its own set of absolutely critical requirements. So, who could possibly have the expertise to nail all of them?
Well, to get to the bottom of that, we're going to do something pretty cool. We're going to dive into the real-world projects of one single company that's actually done all of this and more. By looking at their actual work, we can start to see just how incredibly complex it is to build the world that's all around us.
All right, let's jump right in. And what better place to start than with the spaces that are literally shaping our future generations? We're talking about everything from a child's first nursery all the way up to high-tech schools. And let me tell you, the stakes here are about way more than just furniture. This is about creating places for people to learn and grow.
When you're building a space for kids, you're basically juggling three massive things at once. First, and most importantly, everything has to be unbelievably safe. Second, it's got to be durable enough to withstand, well, everything kids can throw it at. And third, it has to be inspiring, a place that actually makes young minds excited to be there.
And check this out, the demands for kid spaces can be polar opposites. On one hand, you've got a project to furnish a bunch of nurseries that had to be done in a lightning-fast 2 days, a total sprint. On the other hand, you've got this incredible Children's Interactive Center, which was a 7-month marathon of complex tech and educational design. Both are for children, but we're talking about completely different challenges. Yeah, and that interactive center, wow, this was way more than just picking out some colorful chairs. The list of requirements was intense. Every single piece of furniture had to have rounded edges. The materials needed to be tough enough to handle kids all day, every day. Then you had to integrate digital screens, sensory tech, create different zones for different ages, and make sure every single electrical wire was 100% safe and secure. It's like a playground merged with a tech lab.
But of course, kids grow up fast, and their learning environments have to evolve right along with them. As they move into school, the big challenge shifts from just basic safety to really integrating technology seamlessly, which is exactly what we see in a project for this one secondary school in Sofia.
So what even is a modern learning environment these days? Well, you can forget about just a room with desks. Think of it more like a fully integrated ecosystem. We're talking furniture designed for learning, plus all the computers, monitors, projectors, even printers, everything working together as one system to make learning more dynamic. Okay, so from the classroom, let's zoom out a bit. Let's talk about the spaces that enrich the whole community. You know, the hubs for culture, art, and just public life in general. These places are for everyone, and their needs are just as complex. And this brings us to a really fascinating project, renovating a youth center. The challenge here was just massive. See, they weren't starting with a blank slate. They had to work inside a historic building and somehow transform it into a modern, multi-use space without losing its character.
And just look at what they had to cram into this one building. It had to be a youth center with co-working spaces and media labs. At the exact same time, it had to be a museum with all the special lighting and display cases that requires. And on top of all that, it needed a flexible hall for conferences and community events. That's 3 totally different worlds under one roof.
Now, this whole idea of balancing how something works with how it looks and feels is so important, especially when we start talking about the art world. This quote here really nails it. It's not enough for the equipment to just work. It has to belong in the space. And this is the perfect example of how technical an art gallery really is. You and I, we walk in and see beautiful art. But behind the scenes, it's practically a science lab. You've got specialized lighting where they can fine-tune the color of the light. You have professional systems for hanging priceless works. You have climate control to preserve the art and high-security display cases. It really is as much a laboratory as it is a gallery. Okay, if you thought that was complex, let's raise the stakes even higher. Let's head into the corridors of power, government and administration buildings. Here, the game changes again. It's all about security, professionalism, and just rock-solid efficiency. You know, the term government office is a little misleading because it covers such a huge range of needs. One project could be a flat-out sprint against the clock, while the next is a meticulous, year-long marathon with the kind of security protocols you can barely imagine.
And just look at these timelines. It's wild. At one end of the spectrum, you have the entire furnishing of a municipality's offices done in just 5 days. And at the other end, a massive, comprehensive project for the Bulgarian National Bank that took a full year. The range of demands here is just staggering. So let's put two of those high-stakes projects side by side. For the National Bank, it was all about permanence. We're talking extreme security, furniture designed for long-term health, and materials built to last for decades. But for the Anti-Corruption Commission, a totally different game. The priorities there were speed and confidentiality, getting custom furniture built and installed fast and quiet so they could get to work.
So let's just take a breath. We've gone from a 2-day nursery job to a year-long bank project. And that brings up the big question, right? How on earth does a single organization get good enough to manage that kind of insane variety? Well, it really boils down to this. Every single one of these spaces has a core, non-negotiable requirement that demands deep, specialized knowledge. For an art gallery, it's meeting museum standards. For a children's center, it's absolute, unquestionable safety. For a science lab, it's hitting precise technical specs. And for a national bank, it's security you can't get through. You just can't wing it at this level.
The secret sauce, it turns out, is the process. This isn't just about selling furniture out of a catalog. It's a complete start-to-finish service. It begins with planning, moves to sourcing, or even custom making the items, handling all the delivery logistics, doing a professional installation, and then formally handing it over. Sometimes they even train the staff on how to use their new space. It's the whole shebang.
So after this whole journey, bouncing between nurseries, art galleries, and government offices, we can finally look at the public spaces around us with a totally new set of eyes. We can start to appreciate that complex, invisible web of work that brings them to life.
I mean, we've really covered the whole spectrum, haven't we? From something as simple and profound as a child's very first chair, all the way to the incredibly complex and secure environments that run an entire nation. And at the end of the day, this is the real takeaway. The quality, the thought, the care that goes into our shared spaces, that's a mirror. It reflects how much we, as a society, actually value our public life. So the next time you walk into a library or a school or your town hall, just stop for a second. Take a look around. What does your environment say about what you value?